Hola. Hello.
Hola.
That's a whole lot of David. Here's yeah, we're gonna be talking about David Fincher today. Cannot wait. This is definitely a director that you and I really enjoy. I would say most of his films. Probably revere in some way his processes. And I mean, this will get into a larger discussion at some point about Hitchcock, obviously, but we just covered Wes Anderson before him, and I know you said that both are huge sort of apprentices of Hitchcock, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, they're both notably big fans of his work, and I mean, it crops up all the time. For Anderson, it seems to be more of a process thing, where he sort of his ability to storyboard and work everything out before shooting, where the shooting is the chore, and then that is typically reflected in his movies. Um, Whereas Fincher seems to really enjoy shooting a movie, or uh, he has very long shoots. Um, but then the content of his movies is a lot of crime thrillers, mysteries, which would be more in line in general with Hitchcock, whereas Anderson is a primarily comedy guy, where his stuff is still has elements of seriousness to it. But
Yeah, it's not quite a dramedy, but it's closer to that. It's like a character study comedy.
yeah, and it'll help some because eventually we'll do an episode on Hitchcock, which will be a longer one because obviously he is like a sort of on the Mount Rushmore of filmmakers, both in terms of output, lasting impact, number of sort of classic films, reinventions of technique, etc. But it helps to get through some of these filmmakers today that are not as obviously influenced by him. I mean, we've talked about the Coens before and some of their uh, the direct lifts from his work, both visually and storytelling wise.
Yeah.
And David Fincher, well, if you're talking about American filmmakers that are sort of at the top of the game today or in the last 20 years, Fincher is going to show up just as much as everyone else we've talked about, be that Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, who's not American but might as well be at this point.
Yeah, he's been adopted.
Yeah, Wes Anderson, the Coen brothers, and there are a few others we'll probably cover before we start diving as far back as someone like Hitchcock. But
Right,
uh,
Scorsese, Spielberg.
yeah, and I mean they're older, and we did that one episode with them. Maybe at some point we'll do an episode for each of them, but those are longer because all these guys we were talking about are in their 50s. I think Fincher's yeah,
He's
he turns 60 this or he turns 61 in a couple weeks.
I was gonna say I would assume he's in his 60s, early 60s.
Yeah. So all these guys are kind of the same. I mean, he started in the 80s making a lot of music videos,
Yes,
which comes across in his films less and less as he's gone on as a director.
for sure.
Where some of his earlier stuff is like most notably sort of edited to music as opposed to what he's gotten into um, more recently, which is edited to his style rather than to someone else's art.
Yeah, music videos and ads as well. Because he's done like huge shoots for, well, not huge shoots, sorry, but like he's done ads for huge companies like Levi's, Coca-Cola, um,
BMW.
BMW, yeah. But also like the artists that he's done music videos for are some of the most iconic people ever in music.
Yeah, Michael Jackson, Madonna, the Rolling Stones, that just to name a few.
Sting, Iggy Pop,
Well, those two are a little further out, but
George Michael.
yeah. Justin
I mean,
Timberlake,
I was
Jay-Z,
gonna
Don
say
Henley,
I was gonna
Aerosmith.
say Madonna, but yeah, you stole that one. Yeah, when I said like some of the best in music, to be clear, I don't think Iggy Pop is one of the best in music. I was gonna say Michael Jackson and Madonna because those are the big two
Iggy
heavy
Pop's
hitters.
pretty important to the history of music, with the Stooges and his respectable, if not slightly underrated or underappreciated solo stuff in the last 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, a perfect circle.
Yeah, nothing
So
against Perfect Circle, but
so getting into no, just a like a way less known band.
almost Tool.
Yes. Uh so yeah, you know the story um on how he got his start with acclaimed film Alien 3.
Yeah, or Alien Cubed is the actual stylized title. So for some reason in the 90s he had this and Seven had these stupid stylized titles. So it's like Alien with the 3 where you'd put it like Alien Cubed.
So it's Alien 9, but it's
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
just Alien 3.
Yeah. I think he got this movie, like his transition from music videos into film is that he just met a lot of producers and financiers and established himself as a competent director. And somewhere his name came up for like, why don't we give him this new Alien movie? Um,
Not in
and
1992, to be clear.
yes, 1992. This movie is a notable disaster. Um,
But
it
not
is
really, it's not really his fault.
no, I mean it was profitable. All of his movies have eked out a profit. A lot of his enduring influence and impact has been that his movies sell really well after they've been in theaters too.
Yeah.
So he benefited from a lot of DVD sales, and we'll talk later about how he transitioned away from the old film distribution medium to the new, because this Fincher is actually one of the first people who was like, streaming, that's the future. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's the cart ahead of the horse here. Alien 3, yeah. When I say it's a disaster, I mean it is a very mediocre movie. Fincher himself has gone on record repeatedly and disowned the movie, saying, I hate this more than anyone else. This movie's a piece of junk. Um, it sort of made him very cynical towards the process of making films. Thankfully, it didn't stop him. But functionally, I think one of the big problems was that he had a crew of people he liked working with, like a huge cast of whatever it is, cinematographers, just people who wanted to work with on set. And um, 20th Century Fox was like, no, we already have a crew. You just need to show up and get this movie underway. And
Right.
that didn't work.
So it's people he's just not like that. Those aren't his people. They're
Yeah,
other people.
yeah. And so to summarize it up as briefly as possible, because this is not an interesting movie, it's not. There's something to be said about the Alien franchise as a whole, and this place in it near the bottom, if not at the bottom, in terms of quality, which is tough because there have been some bad Alien movies. Um, Basically, you can tell that this movie has too many visions. There's the studio vision, which is designed to be streamlined and profitable and uh, meet audiences' expectations where they were for an alien movie. So like guns, aliens impregnating people, like very specific, like a checklist. So
Yeah.
there's that part of the movie. There's Fincher wanting to be a filmmaker, like coming in for his first movie, and you can see some of his flourishes he would become known for later, and those clash with most of the studio ideas for the movie. So the action scenes are edited together very strangely because Fincher does action differently than James Cameron would, which is what these studio assholes want or wanted, and they asked the wrong guy. Um, and then
Right.
there's actually another two visions that are clear in the movie, which is the two different scripts that they merged into one. So there
Oh,
was one movie that was meant to be like Aliens, basically, like a shoot 'em up, blast that alien movie where the characters are chasing the alien through like this penal colony. And then there's the penal colony movie, which is like a science fiction movie about these super aggressive, low IQ prisoners in space, um, and sort of the hierarchy of their setup and how they mine materials and how those characters then play along with Sigourney Weaver's Ripley. And so all this stuff ends up blending together into a movie that doesn't make a lot of sense and doesn't pay off the characters. It is an alien movie, the aliens in it, but it's not scary, it's not very exciting, and it's not very suspenseful. Um, so yeah, that's enough said about that. It's pretty mediocre. Thankfully, it did not break Fincher's spirit, and he would go on then a few years later to direct Seven.
Yeah. Which is 1990. 95.
Yeah, this came out just a few months before I was born. Perfect way to enter the world.
This movie has influenced so many noir, like procedural type, detective, psycho movies to come. Just from even the like coloration of the movie to like the flashlights like scanning through like a darkened room. There are a whole bunch of shots that have been ripped directly from this. Most notably, like in recent years, the Batman. Like I remember we were talking about how the Batman was influenced extremely visually from this movie.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I think that if that movie is most similar to anything, it's this movie stacked on top of The Dark Knight.
yeah. So yeah, this is Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey, what's
Gwyneth
her
Paltrow.
the goop lady. Yeah,
Yeah,
Gwyneth Paltrow.
goop vag lady.
Yeah.
Put the rocks in there, goop it up.
Oh yeah, Reg E. Cathy's in it as well.
E
Amazing.
R Lee Ermey. Sorry, his name is weird. The Full Metal Jacket drill instructor guy.
No,
Yeah, he's in it.
he is. I was talking about someone else.
John C. McGinley.
No, Reg E.
Reg E.
Cathy.
Cathy. Oh, the House of
Good
Cards dude.
God. Yes, I wasn't saying the character's name, I was saying the actor's name.
Reg E. Cathy.
Yes, the barbecue man. And in The Wire as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
No, R. Lee Ernie. Oh, I see why you were confused because of the weird E sounds in the name.
Yes.
Yeah, this movie is absolutely devastating. I'm pretty sure Dad like vehemently does not like this movie for how disturbing it is.
Yes, his description of it was something along the lines of, you can't unsee certain things, and no movie has made me want to forget what I've seen more than Seven.
To be clear though, it shows like a lot of dead bodies in horrifying ways, but it doesn't have a ton of like it doesn't show a ton of the violence.
No, but consider that he would have watched this either shortly before or shortly after my birth, and the twist of the movie is the murder of a pregnant lady. So,
No. I'm not saying why he wouldn't be horrified by it. I'm more so talking about other people watching it and assuming that the movie would be like, kind of slasherish, if you will.
Yeah, it's not gory, but it is graphic.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
just doesn't show the violence occurring. So you see the aftermath of the gluttony and the sloth are particularly the disturbing ones, I would argue.
yeah.
Yeah, for those, since we didn't explain, this is a movie about a serial killer who kills people on the seven deadly sins, played by alleged bad man Kevin Spacey, who's being
Definitely bad man.
alleged.
He
I
was
read
acquitted, wasn't he?
he was not found guilty, so
Fantastic. He'll be working very shortly.
probably with Fincher
Sure.
very very shortly.
If you haven't seen, I think we've plugged this before, but if you haven't seen the disturbing Thanksgiving Day
The
videos,
Christmas
the
videos.
Christmas videos of Kevin
What
Spacey's.
they're called,
Oh,
like a message from Frank.
oh man. Yeah. He's a
Yeah,
scary guy.
he's not a good person, probably.
Good actor. Scary, scary
I
man.
wonder why he. Yeah.
I wonder why he plays these characters so well. It's like there's no life behind those eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt are trying to catch this guy, and like you said, it's been a very influential neo noir movie. In terms of the procedural aspect of their detective work, which ends up being a very slow burn that gets darker and darker as it goes. Like it's a very visually dark movie. Um, a lot of attention to detail. This starts to have all of Fincher's hallmarks, with a few things that have sort of disappeared as he's gone on as a director. So I would argue that his visual style is defined by a lot of like use of tripods. The camera very rarely um, is handheld. I think this movie has the most of his handheld camera work. Um, but oftentimes a still camera that will follow the actors around. Um,
Mhm.
he breaks a lot of rules of cinematography, so he breaks a lot of the rules of like eye lines, um, usually to get across something for how the characters feel about one another.
Oh
Um,
yeah, like it feels like you should see more of the character or more of the scene, but it's
yeah,
just like blocked off and you're like, dude, what the hell? Like I want access to like what's over here. And that keeps you wanting more and it keeps you guessing throughout the film. And it's also, as you said, similar to the characters where they're trying to see more and figure out more, but they can't. Like they just can't get it
hmm
till it's too late.
yeah. So it helps that this movie has a great script. Um, Something that I would argue through Fincher's career, he's relied less and less on a polished script or on an even competent screenwriter to draw um, material from. Because this one is like a, I would say in lesser hands, it's not a slam dunk, and it definitely could have been done much worse. Um, but his sense of style to this movie matches it perfectly. Um, I don't think it's the greatest movie ever. It's not like the greatest mystery ever, and I have some critiques of it, but in general, it's like a really excellent movie. And I know we've talked about Rob Bottin before a couple of times.
Hmm.
Did the special effects, the guy who did The Thing,
Yeah.
The Fog, some Carpenter movies. And the special effects in this movie are messed up, but thanks, Mr. Bottin.
Messed up meaning they're really good.
Yeah, like you look at them and it hurts.
Yeah, definitely. There is something to be said though for the fact that he doesn't show like the slasher aspect. He shows what happens like post mortem.
Right, because we're seeing the movie through the eyes of the investigators, not sensationalized through the eyes of the killer.
Yes. Which is different from a lot of stuff like content that's coming out now. Um,
Yeah,
which does
because
show a lot of that and it's way more focused on getting into the mind of the killer and not even the mind, but showing that.
yeah,
Um,
and we'll get to that later with one of the last things he did, which is Mindhunter, where there's almost no on-screen violence, but it manages to be as, if not more, disturbing than Seven.
yes.
In the way that the impact of consuming all of this just horrific material for an investigator and therefore for the audience has a lasting impact on you.
Yeah. I did have one more thing to say, but lost it. It's gone. Yeah, he then did commercials or he did a commercial and a music video between here and The Game, which came out in 97, which I still need to see. This movie has Michael Douglas and Sean Penn in it.
Mm-hmm.
Are they related? Because they look like in the movie, are they related?
Yeah, they're brothers.
Okay, that makes sense because they look really similar.
Nicholas and Conrad Van Orton.
I always get them confused. Like my brain can never differentiate them because I haven't seen, like, I've seen more things with Kirk Douglas than Michael Douglas, and then I've hardly seen anything with Sean Penn other than Mystic River trash.
Oh yeah, you picked like the worst Sean Penn movie to watch.
Yeah, but
Although many
anyway,
consider it his best.
that movie's so overrated. The Game, anyway, haven't seen. Definitely need to because it seems like
Um,
a combination of things that I would enjoy.
yeah, without spoiling it, basically, Michael Douglas is like a banker who's a shitty guy. And his brother is Sean Penn, who shows up and gives him um like a coupon for this like weird game, and the game is like it's like a game that happens throughout his real life, where like the company that runs the game starts to fuck with Michael Douglas. Um, and it gets increasingly crazy to the point where it's it seems like the game thing is meant to punish him, not to be fun.
Damn it, Sean.
Uh yeah,
Did you
I
have to
mean
do that?
it's a phenomenal movie. I I honestly like it almost as much as Seven, if not more.
Oh shit.
Um, it just uses suspense really well. Michael Douglas is phenomenal in the movie. This is probably one of my favorite performances I've seen him do. The plot is pretty straightforward overall, which speaks to Douglas's performance and Fincher's direction to keep things moving.
Mm. It doesn't get bogged down.
No, no. I would describe it basically as like some combination of Saw and The Fugitive without the ridiculous action in The Fugitive and without the torture in Saw.
Hmm. Interesting.
But yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you.
Yeah, that's okay. I remember what I was going to say about Seven as well. TV show most notably influenced by that would be season 1 of True Detective, like to a T. The idea behind it, but also like the way that they show like the aftermath of like a brutal like murder or like slash rape, like just showing that and then showing the getting in the mind of the detective, trying to get into the mind of the killer in order to figure out where they are or who they are, and then solving it. um yeah, very similar in that regard. um then we get to the cult film Fight Club, 1999, the turn of the century. I still
yeah,
really
so
like
the
this movie.
yeah, so it's worth noting that Seven and The Game both. Seven was a huge movie, like it made tons of money.
Yeah,
Uh,
it really put him on the map as well after
yeah,
Alien 3 of being like, oh, this guy does know what he's doing. Maybe it
yeah,
was just that he was having squabbles with the production company.
right. And The Game also did reasonably well. It wasn't like a big hit, but it made money, like a little bit of money, and was well regarded overall.
Hmm.
Fight Club was not a big hit.
Hmm.
It was not particularly well received either. Some people loved it, some hated it. Kind of split down the line. Um, And yeah, now it's considered a classic. Definitely, like it's labeled as a cult classic. I would say it's more than that, but it's hard to tell why, because this is one of those movies that is equally beloved by two different groups of people for two different, very different reasons.
That's what I was gonna say. Is it's a cult movie, like for a lot of reasons, because people, well, I mean, we talked about it in the Edgelord protagonist episode as well. Like a lot of people love this movie because they identify as Tyler Durden and want to be Tyler Durden and enact Tyler Durden on like the world.
Right.
And
There's
then
the
other
incel frat boy approach, and then
yeah.
there's the
And then there's other people realizing that it's actually just showing that this is one response to the world, and this guy is um not of sane, not of sound mind, obviously. Um yeah. This is also around the time where Edward Norton started to become on the map. Like this is right after American History X, like a year after.
yeah, at this point he was like the biggest actor in Hollywood.
Hmm.
Um him and Brad Pitt
I was
were
gonna
like
say he and Brad
huge.
Pitt.
Um because
The
I
big
mean, yeah, Ed Norton was already nominated for like two Oscars when this came out for Primal Fear and American History X.
I remember watching this. I think I watched it with you like super late at night over the summer, or maybe it was my senior year of high school. Um, but like I feel like I watched it at the perfect time in my life.
Mm.
Just like, going through that rebellious phase, you're really open to new ideas. Um, yeah, it's got a lot of badass vibes to it. It's very meta, right? And then there's a twist. There's several twists. Um, yeah, based off of a book by Chuck Palahniuk, which I would like to read at some point. But he also notably has said that this movie is better than his book, which is really funny. I don't know if he's rescinded that statement or not, but I think he stands by it.
Oh yeah, I mean the movie is definitely better than the book. Yeah, I mean
R.I.P.
Palahniuk has,
Meatloaf.
yeah, Meatloaf is in the, well, I don't know. I don't know that he needs to rest in peace, but
He's
uh,
definitely not in peace. He's
he's in
definitely
hell.
he's definitely wreaking havoc somewhere.
He's in hell being tortured by bats because of that album he made. But yeah, this movie is, I mean, most subtextually a criticism of a very specific type of masculinity, what we would call toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Um, but it's about more than that. It's about the struggles of working in corporate America and the shittiness of consumerism and commercialism and a almost it's like a combination of Rebel Without a Cause and Catcher in the Rye, but the terrorism instead.
Yeah.
Um,
As opposed to just like bopping around New York City, it's like, hey, let's like kidnap a senator and then blow up some buildings.
mhm. Yeah, but everything works in the movie. All the performances are great. Brad Pitt and Ed Norton work really well playing off each other. And Helen Bonham Carter really solid as the chain smoking maniac.
Yes. Yeah. Definite must watch for anyone who claims to like movies. Um it's still worth a rewatch, I would say. It's a fun movie. Um
Fun, grimy. Yeah,
I get a lot of enjoyment out of grimy films like this,
this is
especially
actually this is
especially
one.
stuff that comes out at the turn of the century. Like it's got the same like kind of like grunge, odd, like it's almost cast in the same light.
As what? Sorry, you cut out
The
for a second.
Matrix films,
Oh, oh.
which came out like a few years later, but
No, The
it's
Matrix
done.
came out this year.
Oh, the same year. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. It's just interesting that it's showing. Yeah, I guess it's just like in response to the 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 zeitgeist at the time and the response to like the turn of the century and corporate bullshit.
Yeah, they both are dealing with the angst regarding the sort of placid nature of being stuck in bloated corporate offices,
Hmm.
where the Matrix tries to transcend it with the hero's journey, and Fight Club is more about like the depths of hell one goes to try to like solve that problem through violence. So they both
Yeah,
say we can solve the problem through violence, but the Matrix does it in a fantasy science fiction, positive way, and this movie is like, no, we're fucked. This thing will bring your mind to its knees, and also it doesn't help if you're a man because you have to beat other dudes up. So get wrecked twice.
yeah,
Yeah, David
yeah.
Fincher's stuff, not the most positive. Uh, I mean, but I didn't. I forgot to say the end quote of Seven, which is Morgan Freeman quoting Ernest Hemingway saying, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part, which is I would say a reasonable description of Fincher's outlook on people as a whole, at least through his movies. There are always characters who are fighting to try to improve the world.
That part's uplifting.
Yeah, but yeah, yeah, Fight Club. I never really want to rewatch it. I feel like I got everything. It's weird because I like rewatching a lot of his slower movies, the ones that are slow burns. This one, I don't know why.
I love the editing.
Oh yeah, it's like incredibly well shot and edited. I should also say that these movies, like this movie, Seven, and The Game, and on most of his movies, have a very similar look to them. They have a very similar editing style to them, color usage, production design. But he uses very different teams. Like these movies were all different cinematographers, all different editors,
Hmm.
different people doing the music, but it still feels the same.
Yeah,
And I think that's because Fincher knows exactly what he wants and knows how to extract it from the people he works with, which has in some way garnered him a reputation as being a difficult guy to work for. So yeah, let's move on to Panic Room,
yeah.
written
Still haven't seen this one.
written by David Cope, Koepp. This is a fun movie. It's basically a no strings attached thriller. Um, Vaguely about feminism, but mostly it's just a fun, as Fincher called it, like woman trapped in the house kind of movie. Uh,
Home invasion movie.
yeah, exactly.
Kristen
Um,
Stewart, isn't it?
yep. So Jodie Foster and her daughter Kristen Stewart, who's a little kid in the movie. Um, and don't worry, she was bad at acting as a kid too. Uh, they they live in a big brownstone in New York City. Um, that they just moved into, and it gets robbed by Forrest
Jared
Whitaker,
Leto.
Jared Leto, and a guy you may or may not know, Dwight Yoakam,
Yeah.
who's primarily like a country singer. uh, but Fincher's done a lot of interviews about this movie where he says, like, he splits it up by saying, like, the most pretentious way he can, that Fight Club is a film and Panic Room is a movie. That this movie doesn't have much deeper subtext. It's just meant to be surface level entertainment, thrilling, whereas Fight Club has things between the lines. Um, I don't know that I totally agree with him on the whole, but with regards to this movie compared to that one, he's certainly right. Um, this is a really good movie, so it's the same thing. It's really well shot. It's super well edited. It has like really innovative use of CGI in ways that you wouldn't expect.
Interesting.
But all in all, yeah, it is a home invasion movie, which I'm unabashedly a fan of the genre. Um, Forrest Whitaker's really good in it. Jodie Foster's good in it. Jared Leto and Kristen Stewart are abysmal in it. Yeah. I mean, basically the plot is they're in this house. There's a panic room. The bad men come in because they want to get something that the previous owner had. So Foster and Stewart go into the panic room, and then the guys try to get in.
Gotcha.
And there's all kinds of chaos and betrayal, and has this great like Kubrick ending. I won't say anymore, but yeah, good stuff. Would recommend this movie. Um, it's fun. It's nowhere near as depressing as the previous few. But yeah, there's not too much more to say about it. Let's move on to one that is even better. Zodiac.
Yeah, this movie I absolutely turn up for, and also is very very like bothersome on the mind for what it shows. Because this one he has more violence in than the other ones, like that lake scene in particular. That lake scene, holy shit. It's got this movie's cast is also pretty fun. It's got like a newsroom vibe, kind of like the final season of The Wire. Very similar to that, similar to like All the President's Men.
Yeah, it combines quite a few different types of movies. There's like the deep procedural detective movie. There's a bit of cops chasing a serial killer stuff, and
It's
then
also
there's that like
like Dirty Harry-ish in the way that they're chasing
yeah,
that guy.
yeah. It's definitely better than all of those other versions, though. Way
Yes.
better than All the
Yes.
President's Men, better than Dirty Harry. I mean, it
Yes.
helps that it's in San Francisco, where the Zodiac primarily was operating from. Dirty Harry is in the movie. Like the Dirty Harry, there's like a scene where the one guy tries to watch Dirty Harry and can't because it reminds him of his failure.
I don't
Mark
remember that.
Ruffalo, yeah, Mark Ruffalo like goes to watch Dirty Harry and like can't.
Hmm. I don't remember that at all.
But yeah, this movie takes Seven to a whole new level because this movie is way less graphic than Seven. Like there's only that one murder scene,
Well,
which is
the beginning also, like it opens with a murder, but
yeah,
it's more gory though. Like what it shows happen is more gory. It doesn't show like the post-mortem aspects.
um, what? How do you mean?
Seven is more about like discovering the bodies after bad things have been done to them. Zodiac like shows what happens to the victims like in real time.
I mean, I remember the guy, like the shooting at the beginning, but
Yeah, and then the lake scene. That's already more than what's shown in 7.
uh, I just don't remember either of those scenes being particularly graphic or gory.
The lake scene is a man gets his throat slit on camera. You don't remember that?
I remember the scene. I just don't remember.
It's just like extreme tension, like the worst amount of tension possible, and then it's just horrific.
Oh, all right. Here's the stabbing. Basically, no, no throat slitting here.
Maybe it was the stabbing part.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, there's lots of stab. I mean, it's shot like a Hitchcock movie. Like, there's not a lot of
Yeah.
blood, but it's like Psycho almost. Um,
Yes, definitely. My point is there's more active murdering happening on camera than in 7.
yeah, I would agree with that. I just wouldn't call it gory or graphic. Like, it's the use of violence, but in a Hitchcockian way, not in an exploitative manner.
Yeah, it's more psychologically violent.
Yeah. But if you gave this movie to James Wan, it would have been stab
Oh,
and then
yeah.
blood spurts. Stab, blood everywhere.
I'm saying it's more gruesome than 7, like actively.
Yeah, I just don't agree.
7 hardly shows any of that happening.
The man who is forced to eat himself to death is gruesome. And then the sloth man in the bed who isn't even dead. That is a gruesome twosome.
I don't remember that.
The man is in the bed. He's been strapped down to a bed, and
Did
then
they
he's
show
still
him
alive.
die?
Yes, because he comes to life and they shoot him. He
Don't
like,
remember.
you know, the guy from Scrubs who plays the asshole doctor.
Dr. Cox?
Yeah, not the one in charge of everything, but the asshole doctor.
Dr. Cox.
Yeah. He's in 7. And he
Okay.
has like a big old shotgun and they do that raid on the house because they think they've caught the killer.
Yeah, I remember him being really broken up about what he did.
And they go in and then they kick through the door and they're like, "Oh, what the and because it's the guy in the bed
Right.
and he's not dead yet, and then he lurches up
Right.
and then he shoots him. But they show
Okay.
this guy who's like the combination of the guy being starved to death and the guy being force fed to death. I find those to be more harrowing images than just as like I think that the stabbing is a more expertly crafted scene in Zodiac because it is more like it's more affecting. But I think that the ones in 7 are more gruesome. Like
I
Zodiac,
find those to be more psychologically and like there's more of like a guttural feeling to them, I guess, but anything where someone's being bound and then stabbed like really bothers me a lot. The being bound part is very tension building.
yes, I guess because they're alive and you have to deal with their helplessness. Whereas, yeah, in 7, the pig man's already dead and sloth man is close enough.
Yeah, anyway, that was quite
But
a diatribe.
but the movie like 7 forces you to think about what happened to them, whereas Zodiac shows that one and forces you to live with the consequence of it.
Yeah, it's just interesting that he clearly thinks a lot about what to show and what not to show, and then in this movie he decided to do that as opposed to not showing it. He also like this. What's interesting about the Zodiac killer is he basically like points to who the Zodiac killer is. He's like, yeah, it could be this guy, it is this guy, but it's allegedly this guy.
The
The
like John Lynch guy.
Yeah, the guy from Fargo. He's the husband in Fargo.
Yeah,
The guy that looks like a thumb.
yeah, John Lynch.
Um, they have since caught the Zodiac killer, right? Or no?
Uh,
Or it's still unknown. Or maybe they figured out who it was, but he like has since died.
they are pretty sure that Arthur Lee Allen, who was played by John Lynch, was the
Yeah.
killer, but they never outright confirmed it.
Right.
And he couldn't have done all the murders.
Right.
It's very likely he did most of the cryptograms and ciphers and that stuff. And that he probably committed, I don't know, 5 or 6 murders.
Mm-hmm.
But they've never been able to confirm that all of the ones that the Zodiac claimed was one guy.
Yeah. This
But
movie has. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, this is obviously the most similar to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is far more extreme than any of his other movies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But they have the same procedure with trying to follow it and the obsession of characters. The difference is Zodiac shows this obsession over decades of time. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, like, goes back in time to solve a crime, but it's still just one guy over like a few months, whereas Zodiac is more thorough, where like this unsolvable crime takes place and drives many people insane, rather than the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which just drives one guy insane who then just solves it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting the projects that he picks up because they all deal with sort of that, at least up till this point, that like dark um aspect of the world. Like that Hemingway quote that you mentioned, how the world is what is the beginning of it?
The world is a fine place and worth fighting for.
The world is a fine place and worth fighting for, and I agree with the latter or the second part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he says. Yeah, that seems to really resound with the projects that he's picking because he's just like, wow, there's some really awful people out there. Jake Gyllenhaal, great performance in this as usual. I think you're a big Gyllenhaal fan. I certainly am. I like him in pretty much everything that he's in.
I wouldn't go that far, but I do like him in most. He usually elevates a movie.
Yeah, that's why I said pretty much everything that he's in.
Like he's in some tough movies, but yeah,
Southpaw.
I don't know if I've seen. Is that the boxing one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
I haven't either, but I've heard it's whatever.
There's a
He's
really bad one he's in called Velvet Buzzsaw.
I don't know that one.
It's the same writer director as Nightcrawler.
Oh, interesting.
His follow-up film
Far better, obviously.
Buzzsaw or Velvet Buzzsaw. Actually, it's not even his follow-up film. But it's weird and pretentious and bad.
Robert Downey Jr. is also very good in this.
Mm-hmm. And Mark Ruffalo is pretty good.
Ruffalo and around.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie had some criticism from Ruffalo because Ruffalo was pissed that he was having to do upwards of 20 takes in a scene.
He had his feathers ruffaloed.
Yeah, and I mean Fincher was basically like, well, you're not You need to get better at acting.
It's a skill issue, buddy.
It was a skill issue, yeah. I mean, there have been similar complaints by Ben Affleck when they did Gone Girl. Ben Affleck saying that like it would take him like 10 to 15 times to do a scene because he was just walking wrong.
Yeah, maybe because Ben Affleck and Mark Ruffalo are not the best fucking actors out there. But
No.
then again, uh, yeah,
But part of it is what Fincher asks an actor to do. Like he times the camera moving to the way that an actor moves to get a very precise looking thing.
yeah,
Ben Affleck's the director. He didn't do any of that shit. Ben Affleck just puts the camera down and goes, "All right, action."
yeah. I don't want to talk about him anymore. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button is next. Which
Speaking of things I have nothing to talk about.
we don't have to spend too much time on. I've seen it. It's a movie. It's a lot different than anything that he did before this. Why do you think he accepted this movie? Is this a Roald Dahl story? It sounds like
No. No, it's that guy who did the one about with the rich
F.
guy.
Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
The Great Gatsby, that's the one.
That rich guy.
That stupid book about that perfectly describes a time period.
Stupid book.
You heard me say it was stupid and then give it praise.
I did.
Yeah, this movie underwent many changes over time. So as for how Fincher got it, basically I think everybody else they had lined up dropped out.
Mm.
It was going to be directed by Frank Oz, starring Martin Short.
What the hell?
Back in the 80s. Then it moved in the 90s to Spielberg, starring Tom Cruise. Spielberg was too busy making two small films, Jurassic Park and Schindler's List, so that fell through.
It definitely feels like a Spielberg
Yeah, and then it moved to
undertaking.
Ron Howard, the late 90s, starring John Travolta.
Oh,
That fell through because Ron Howard was busy making what's that Oscar-winning movie with the guy with the mathematician with the Beautiful Mind?
mm-hmm.
So that didn't work. Then it moved to Spike Jonze with Charlie Kaufman writing a draft. Then they got busy making Adaptation.
I would have far preferred that.
Yeah, that would have been the best version.
Yeah.
Would have been the Jones Kaufman, but oh well. And then it moved to a director named Gary Ross, um, who I don't want to comment on at all. And thankfully that fell through. And then David Fincher came in and picked it up, and I think filmed it. I feel like he might have filmed it before Zodiac.
It kind of looks that way, but it was released 2 years later.
Yeah, let me see the dates on when Zodiac was filmed. They were filmed actually around the same time.
I always think that Zodiac came out in like the 2010s, not the aughts. It has that like kind of look to it, like the crispness.
Yeah, well, that's because Fincher just gets exactly what he wants, and his style has been copied indefinitely. Yeah, I don't know. This isn't a bad movie. It just, um,
I just found a picture of Jared Harris that he's like dressed up as like you can't see it. He's like dressed up as basically Mickey from Snatch. Here, I'll send it to you. He looks like straight up like Mickey from Snatch, which seems like a nod to Pitt's role in that. Sorry, what were you saying?
well, it's not a bad movie. I just think that the like Fincher's style doesn't match the tone of the story. This is like the only movie of his where I felt that to be the case where like it's a competently made movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, this is in the movie.
Yeah, I know. That's why I sent it to you.
Oh. It does look like the guy. Yeah, it does look like Snatch.
Yeah, it reminds me. I know we were talking about what movie was it we were talking about?
Harry and the Hendersons.
No,
Snatch.
no, like several days ago. We were talking about a movie that like it seemed like it could have been shot by someone else. Oh, Oppenheimer. Like it felt
Oh,
like
like the
this movie
Scorsese elements. Okay, yeah.
yeah, this movie feels like it could have been shot by any number of directors. That's why it's like so surprising when you see Fincher's name attached to it. Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just one of this feels like a studio movie that
right.
just got passed around and Fincher eventually just got to it.
Yeah.
And I think that is true of some of his other work, but he must identify with the material better. Whereas this felt like one where I don't know, he just wanted a paycheck.
God, IMDb is horrific with ratings. I'm displeased. Curious Case of Benjamin Button, 7.8. The Social Network, 7.8. That's
Yeah,
laughable.
I think the Social Network. Um, I think people don't understand how good of a movie it is.
Yeah,
Because
people just
like
go, that's that Facebook movie, right?
it's weird to say my two favorite Fincher movies by far are The Social Network and Zodiac. Whereas his two most popular and enduring are Fight Club and Seven,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure are both in the top 50 IMDb movies of all time.
I'm very surprised you like this more than Seven, The
Oh
Social
yeah,
Network.
no doubt.
Interesting.
Those two movies are just masterpieces. The Social Network and Zodiac. Whereas I think Fight Club and Seven have um, some flaws.
I think that just shows that people get like way too caught up with like the content of the film as opposed to like what the movie's actually doing, like
Yeah,
technically and otherwise. Well, not
yeah. I
just
mean,
technically,
like
but
this movie is a technical marvel. Like
2010 this came out.
like the Army Hammer Winklevoss twins.
Winklevoss, yeah.
Winklevoss.
Did you say Binkle with a B?
Winklevoss.
No. No, the Winklevoss. Yeah.
Binky twins.
Why
Army
does
Hammer.
why does why does Fincher keep working with alleged monsters?
Mr. Armand Douglas Hammer is not an alleged monster.
He is a real monster.
He just likes some light cannibalism.
No.
I don't want to get too bogged down in cannibalism, so
Alleged
um,
monster Justin Timberlake. No, he's not. He's not. But he is in this movie. So is
yeah,
Rooney Mara, who we'll see later on as well. Andrew Garfield. That's right. And
yeah, these
obviously Jesse Eisenberg.
yeah, this is a cast of people that shouldn't work well together, that have all been all over the place, and they all mesh, I would say, pretty flawlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, most of these characters have put in a or actors have put in a good performance elsewhere, but have also put in a lot of bad performances.
Yeah.
Eisenberg, Garfield, Timberlake, and Hammer in particular have been in some really mediocre roles, but all of them work here. I mean, there's also like Brenda Song, like
Yeah.
Disney Channel's
Yeah.
Brenda Song shows up in this, and Rashida Jones of The Office and the Parks and Recreation fame.
London Tipton.
London Tipton.
Just such a good name.
Uh,
I honestly need to rewatch this movie like several times because every time I watch it, it's awesome. It's great, and I notice like seven things that I never saw before. No pun intended. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
just
not only
so
does it
many.
just accurately call out the danger of Facebook 6 years before the general public, it seemed, got onto the curve of, oh, dear God, that's bad. Or the fact that, Mark Zuckerberg is a very, very shady man with clear nefarious motives. Um,
Yeah, but he's gonna fight that Musk guy, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk's gonna fight against Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, let's
I mean,
tune in and
Zuckerberg.
watch and give them more of our attention. Yeah. Really, I would say fun movie. Um,
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin's best work as the writer.
mhm.
Um, just amazing, amazing direction in this movie. Like the camera work and like the pace of the camera movements. Um, just keeps you engaged the entire time in a movie about programming and like a feud between friends. Um, yeah, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I think, finally won an Oscar for this movie.
Oh shit, they did the score.
Yeah, they've done the score on a few of Fincher's films. I believe this was the first one.
He's
Um,
9 Inch Nails, right?
yeah, Trent Reznor's the Nine Inch Nails guy. Um, but yeah, great
Yeah.
movie. There's a
Then
ton of CGI in this movie, which, given that there's no
is that because of
actions,
our Army Hammer? Like they
that's
needed.
very little of it. A lot of the
Okay.
backgrounds are CGI in a way
Really?
that fucks with your brain. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's hard to pick them out, but they're all there in a way to like it basically draws your eye away from the backgrounds onto the characters during pivotal moments that sort of keep you engaged in the story.
Hmm.
They're just like these weird details that took tons of time to do for scenes that you wouldn't think would need it.
Interesting.
Like the rowing scene.
Yeah.
All the backgrounds in that are CGI. There are a
Gotcha.
few scenes where cars are driving where the cars are CGI.
Hmm.
It's just it is a movie riddled with intense details that you would not think are there, but they're always there.
And he did that to throw you off?
I think he does it to get you more involved in the movie,
Hmm.
to pull you in.
Then the next one, are you good on time? Or do you wanna
No.
stop and then we'll pick up?
Yeah, this is probably a good place to stop.
All right,
Uh,
cool.
about an hour in, and I would say we're about halfway through. Yeah, because we've still got, yeah. We'll pick up where we left off with the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah. 1 second here. I uh I was I was gonna use this, but it's not important. We'll catch you guys later. See ya.